boardroom. This is the Business of Esports. The worlds of gaming and esports are evolving every day faster than ever before. With YouGov's living data, you can probe into the real thoughts and behaviors of esports fans and gamers worldwide. If you're a team, a brand, an agency, or a rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. They're partners with the biggest names in esports and the biggest brands all around the world, driving compelling results every single day. Check out yougov.com/BOE and schedule a call with YouGov today. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports weekly news show / post podcast live stream. I am Paul the Prophet Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Baratta, Jeff the Juice Cohen. For those of you who are new here, welcome. What we do is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week. But we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. And best of all, on this live stream, we get to do it live with you guys. You get to get in our faces, challenge us, ask questions, disagree with us. We welcome it. We encourage it. We know so many of you listen to this after the fact or watch this after the fact, but would love for anyone who's here live to participate. It makes it so much more fun. How are you guys doing this week?
Well, we can't start with Lindsay because she's not here. Hopefully she's feeling better after her knee surgery. But, you know, this is always one of my favorite episodes, the day before Thanksgiving episode. Historically, we've done the live stream at night before we switched the topic. So we'd all, drink some alcohol while we did it, which would always make the takes even spicier. But today, just coffee because it's still the afternoon. But, yeah, I'm excited to do it.
Nothing really stops you, Jeff, from drinking alcohol at our new time.
Just social norms.
We don't know what's in Jimmy's tumbler at this point. No, it is the Thanksgiving show, which is fun. I don't know if we have Thanksgiving related topics. I was hoping for some. I was looking for some. I will say, though, that we did have a very fun guest on the podcast this week, so for you guys to look forward to. We had Scott Cole, who's an esports broadcaster, so continues to do a lot of NBA 2K broadcasting work and did FIFA broadcasting work, and so has and also came from the sports broadcasting world and worked for many brands, so has like the brand angle, the broadcasting angle. I thought it was really interesting. Great show. And I encourage everyone to tune into that when it drops, probably this weekend. We'll give people a day or two off for Thanksgiving, and we'll drop the show on the weekend. Christian says, Thanksgiving idea, who can eat turkey leg the quickest? I think I probably would win. I don't know. The turkey leg? I don't know. I've seen Jeff eat chicken wings, so
if you give me some of that sauce, whatever it's called, ranch dressing, I'll eat that turkey right up.
Next year we will definitely do turkey during the show. I mean, there's no Thanksgiving where I am, also, so that's the awkward part, and there was none when I was in Canada. So Matt says, "Heyo, we're up in here," and Chris says, "Nah. How about who pours a drink the earliest?" Salute, gents. There you go. If Christopher Laporte himself, Chris O'Coins himself says it's okay, Jeff, you can start pouring yourself a drink.
Chris lives in Vegas and owns like a weed dealership. I'm pretty sure he's not the first person to give us the social norms. I love you, Chris. That place is Sin City, man. We can't count on him for any of our social advice.
We do love Chris, though.
We do, of course.
All right, let's jump into some news. We have lots to cover this week. I want to say it's a little bit of a bad news episode. I hate to kick things off like that, but maybe there's some silver linings here. So let's kick it off with China. I have a couple of stories out of China. And the first one is World of Warcraft to go offline in China as Activision Blizzard and NetEase end 14-year deal. I think we sort of touched on this rumor last week. Now it's official, basically. So this deal, which was struck in 2008, is going to expire in January of next year. NetEase's shares actually plunged 9% on this news. So this is about a week ago. So this is last Thursday. And what it means is Chinese gamers will no longer be able to play things like World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, Overwatch, etc. So they will not have access at all to these games with this deal coming to an end. Now, in a statement, NetEase, this was interesting because this we had not seen last week. In a statement, NetEase CEO said Blizzard and NetEase had material differences on key terms, which is very vague, but may be interesting. And they said, we're honored to have had the privilege of serving our gamers over the past 14 years and have shared many precious moments with them, blah, blah, blah. We will continue to serve our players, that kind of thing. But material differences on key terms in their deal negotiations. Guys, I'm curious what you make of this. There was a second story which basically said the same thing, but this was all over the place. And this one at least took the gamer angle. Gamers lament end of Warcraft in China. So I'm curious what you guys think. Does this not feel a bit lose-lose here? I mean, Jeff?
It definitely does. I mean, clearly, I think in this case, NetEase seems to lose more, just given they have a much bigger rev share of that. So I think I saw somewhere it's something like 4% maybe of either of Activision's revenue or maybe just like the Activision segment of Activision's revenue. So either way, not massive, but still that's not like tiny. Whereas obviously NetEase, it was more important because their stock was down 9% on the news. I doubt Activision's really moved all that much. The other reason I would say it's probably NetEase is because I have to imagine that Activision is not just punting on China here. They're probably just going to line up another partner, I would think, given this seems very much like a negotiation, right? Like whenever you read like, oh, we were so far apart on terms, it's not like Activision said like, hey, we don't want to be in China or we can't be in China for these regulatory reasons or blah, 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 blah. It's like they were negotiating and couldn't come to a deal. So presumably Activision will probably find another partner who's willing to give them better terms. So at the end of the day, Activision probably ends up winning here. Ultimately, it is still surprising though, because it was a very successful partnership and 14 years in the context of gaming. I mean, that's like a lifetime. So I'm a little surprised it fell apart.
Do you think that they're going to find another partner in the region? Because, a lot of the stories that we cover out of China are these games pretty much shutting down completely. I never thought of them actually using that, Jeff. I like that insight because I thought, oh, is this just the end of WoW in China in general? And, there go all the gold farmers pretty much. But
Jimmy, you took my take. I thought this was the silver lining, right? No more gold farmers in WoW.
But I didn't think of that, Jeff, that maybe they're going to just shop for a better deal and that it's still on the table. The region is still on the table for them.
I would think so. I mean, I guess, to be fair, it's possible that's not the case, but, it would just be weird to completely close off that region.
Matt says, sounds like a money issue. Totally feels lose-lose. Surprised neither could put their differences aside to make a ton of money. I mean, why, before I get to the next comment, why do you think, Jeff, that Activision Blizzard would have held out for more here? Like, let me just give you some numbers here. It says the absence of Blizzard games could lower NetEase's revenue by 6 to 8% next year. That's the estimate from Daiwa Capital. And this was based on an estimate that licensed games account for around 10% of NetEase's total revenue, and Blizzard accounts for 60 to 80% of those licensed games. I mean, you would think NetEase, in the face of losing, almost potentially up to 8% of their revenue, would have been willing to play ball. It's not like they're a small shop or, you know what I mean? Like, if Activision Blizzard is truly acting very greedy here, who else do you think could take up this deal other than Tencent?
Yeah, it's definitely surprising. I don't. Tencent would have obviously been the main one I would have said. I'm sure there's plenty of other publishers in China, but then they don't have the marketing heft and that Tencent has. So, maybe it's as easy as people already have the game and just kind of switching the servers over or something, analogous to that. But yeah, it's hard to not think there's something other than maybe just Activision greed. Maybe this has something to do with Microsoft. And it's part of, they want a fresh slate. Maybe they have their own publishing in China. Maybe they already have a large deal with Tencent or, something along those lines. So maybe it has to do with them trying to get a clean slate, presuming that Activision deal closes.
Christian says, does this business lost for China turn into business found for the greater SEA region? I don't think so, right? Like it's not this deal has no bearing really on the broader region. It really is just for China. Guys, I want to bring up one other China story here, if you'll let me, because I thought this one interesting to put these back to back. We've been talking about China and their sort of their push against gaming and the sort of the regulatory and the rules and regulations that they put around gaming. And then I saw this story and I thought the headline was hilarious. Chinese state media, and especially next to the last story, Chinese state media changes its mind, suggests video games are good actually. So the Communist Party Central Committee owned People's Daily signals a sea change is underway. So what they said was, so in this People's Daily newspaper, they argued that just maybe this whole video games thing might have some value to it after all. It was spotted by Reuters tech correspondent Josh Yee, and basically what he said is maybe there's a softening happening in China around gaming. A bunch of gaming stocks rallied on this news in China, but does anyone buy this story? And is anyone just completely confused here at the inconsistency?
Inconsistency, I think, is the word, Paul. It's like, great, what happens when they change their mind again? This is what we've always said about the region, is it just has these ups and downs, and it has a wonderful population of gamers that love and are very good at and interested in playing video games and supportive of the gaming community that the government was restricting not too long ago. And wonderful to hear that that's opening back up until, again, the policy changes again. So this has always been the risk of doing business in that region. I'm very happy to hear that the gamers and the companies there will be embracing it for the, undisclosed foreseeable future. But I don't think this leads to someone like Epic reopening their Fortnite servers. And right, this is, I don't know. I just think there's too much uncertainty. There's too many political loopholes. I still believe that the pathway here is there's going to be some Chinese dominant games and something specific to their culture and their region, and something that supports that's maybe more government controlled, or at least more authentic to that part of the world.
I mean, Matt sort of ran away with my comment here, the comment I was going to make, but like, why do we think, what's the tinfoil hat theory on the change of heart? Like, why would they all of a sudden decide, now maybe this is pretty good? Is it dollars? Is it remember that report where they lost supposedly like 70 million gamers or something like that, whatever the huge number was? Like, why, Jeff, tinfoil hat theory on the change of heart?
I don't even think it doesn't even require a tinfoil hat here to believe this one. I mean, it just seems like, they probably saw something in the data, or, who knows, maybe someone in power lost power and someone else in power gained power who had more favorable opinion. Maybe there was a bribe. I mean, we're kind of dealing with, I don't want to say corrupt, maybe that's not the right word, but like, we're certainly dealing with an unstable regime that is like Jimmy just said, inconsistent. So like, someone might have just changed their mind or had their mind changed for them, or, who knows? Maybe they saw data. Yeah.
The rogue journalist at People's Daily.
Yeah. I mean, clearly
wanted his games back.
I would also think less dollar. I mean, dollars are certainly a part of it, and they have all of those capitalist test cities. I would think just also the ability of gaming to unify a large amount of people. I don't know, just the filter, the structure, the construct of a gaming community to me, I think is something that they realize could also be useful, I think, from a political structure, right? Gaming is fundamental to the metaverse. You're talking about one of the largest societies in the world and the ability to do business and educate that population remotely. Right. So as the metaverse gets built out, gaming being a huge part of that, this social interaction, I think it's a wonderful way. We all do, I think, for not only companies to make money and profit and have fun, but for schools and businesses to engage with students and each other. So hopefully that's some value that they found as well.
Stuart says morning or evening all. Stuart, good morning.
Hey, Stuart.
Good evening. Good to have you. Government flex, perhaps, Stuart thinks. I mean, they don't really need to flex, though, right? That's they have all the power, anyways. Like, who are they flexing on? If they're relaxing the rules, maybe it's to curry favor, right? Maybe the data they're seeing is opposition to the regime because of they're not letting people game. Maybe they don't want unrest among the youth. So now all of a sudden, gaming's good for you.
Could totally make sense. I mean, a bunch of people, it's better for them to be playing World of Warcraft than, starting political groups and, getting motivated to make change.
Exactly. Matt says, sounds like the Chinese government got the numbers and realized they made a mistake trying to limit gaming. Yeah, Matt, like I said, you got ahead of me with your comment there. All right, enough about China, guys. Let's talk about Ubisoft. Ubisoft in the news. And this one made me smile because of I think where this is going in general. The headline here is Ubisoft has confirmed that its games are returning to Steam. So this includes Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Anno 1800, Roller Champions. So it's confirmed that they're going to plan to start releasing some of their games on Steam again. This is after they had gone through this experiment where they stopped releasing new games on Steam in 2019, and all of their games were on the Epic Games Store, basically. So they had gone almost exclusively to the Epic Games Store, which launched end of 2018. And at the time, what was interesting is Ubisoft's vice president for partnerships and revenue suggested Valve's model was outdated. So that's the word he used. It was outdated. He said, it's unrealistic, the current business model that they have. It doesn't reflect where the world is today in terms of game distribution. Now they're crawling back to Steam. What do you guys think of this? Is this a statement on Epic Games? Is it a statement on Steam? Is it a statement on Ubisoft? Is it all of the above? What do you read into this?
Well, I would be a statement on Epic Games.
Because no one uses their platform.
Like maybe they're not happy with the downloads they're getting on Epic, right? And they're saying we need better distribution. We don't care what the split is. Like, I don't know. There's a lot.
I think it certainly shows the power of Steam and the network effects. I mean, it's not the first. I think we've seen this story play out. We saw first play out where everybody made their own launcher. Like initially, Activision had one very early on. Then like EA started bringing all of their stuff onto whatever Origin.
Ubisoft
created a launcher, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and then brought everything exclusive there. And then they all subsequently realized, like domino effect, like EA brought their stuff onto Steam probably a year or two ago. Now Ubisoft is doing it. So they're all realizing, this is a network effects game, and like Steam has where it has the eyeballs. So it does make sense. And your point is correct that capturing that little extra upside is not worth it if you're missing out on all those dollars and all those players.
Does this hurt the Epic Games Store, Jeff, in your mind?
I mean, it might highlight how challenging this announcement doesn't hurt them. It might show why they have not been able to win. It's more the effect than the cause. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Do either of you think, because when I saw this story, the first thing that came to my mind was this is Steam Deck. And maybe I'm giving Steam Deck too much credit, but I think Steam Deck has reinvigorated Steam in general. Do you think and a lot of Ubisoft's games are these like Assassin's Creed style, right? Like single player, which are played very well on a Steam Deck, right? Do any of you think that this is maybe the thing that's that's giving Steam momentum here?
I didn't connect those dots right away, but it's hard not to attribute some of it to the success of Steam Deck, certainly. Because you're right, like it's a perfect platform for a lot of the Ubisoft games. I just think that Steam is the single greatest games library, launcher, review platform in our community right now. So you're kind of foolish to not be on it anyways. So for me, it was just like, of course you need to go back to it. Like, are you going to stop selling? You know, if I'm in commerce, am I going to stop selling on Amazon? You know, right? So, but I think I like the Steam Deck connection a lot, Paul, because I didn't get one because I have issues over the battery life. But I think if you're a younger gamer, right, and you have this huge library, or if you're a family and maybe you don't have your own personalized gaming computer, right? And also these consoles are very expensive. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons that we've already discussed on the show about why the Steam Deck is a popular device, and for Ubisoft to say, hey, not only is it better for us because it's a larger platform, or we're not getting the downloads like we had suggested in the first half of this segment, but also because of the ability to reach a younger audience, or to have them play the game
they
in a
didn't
different
say
way.
any of this.
I know,
Right?
no, I
Which
know.
also
I'm
bothers me.
attributing all of this to you. This is your tinfoil theory. I like it.
No, I wish the Ubisoft executives had more balls, to be honest. Like, I wish they had come out and said, look, we made a mistake. We tried this Epic Game Store experiment. We realized the players, don't want, us to be only on that platform. So we're coming back to Steam. Every game on Steam is going to be 50% off for the next, like something where there's some transparency, and I don't know. I feel like
It's just so rare you see that. It's so rare you see that in business. I mean, particularly from a public company. Like, you just never see that.
It's just, I think this makes it worse.
I don't disagree.
It's tail between their legs.
You just never see it.
Yeah,
we're getting fact checked in the comments. Take a look.
Yeah, but Chris can fact check all we want. Doesn't change my point. Chris says 114 million Switch units sold, 1 million Steam Decks sold. It's not Steam Decks.
Ooh.
I don't think you can ignore 1 million Steam Decks. Like, what is the highest average concurrent player base on Steam today? Like, it's maybe 1 million players, right? Like, how many games on Steam crack 1 million concurrent players? 1 million extra player base out there that's Steam only. I don't think you can ignore it. And I think the comparison to Switch is unfair. I don't know. It's a good point, Chris, but
it's good data. It's good data.
Good data. If only we had you on the show this week to argue it.
Send him the link.
Send him the link. But I also just think that there's wind in Steam's sails right now, and I don't think you can discount that because of Steam Deck, and it's unnerving to see Ubisoft sort of tail between their legs, crawling back. I don't know, this Epic Game Store experiment. I'm not sure where this ends, to be honest, or how it plays out, but it's not feeling good, if you ask me. All right, guys, let's talk about another story that didn't feel right to me. And this is Allied in the news. This one's a bit sort of more, call it business heavy. That's why we have Jeff on the show. And the headline here is Allied Esports Entertainment Board of Directors authorizes $10 million stock repurchase program. So they're going to buy back $10 million of their own stock, which was announced. There's not much more to it than that. They have some cash and they're going to buy back stock, usually in the interest of trying to raise the stock price here. Jeff, you think this is a good idea? Is this what you would be doing in their place?
I genuinely have no idea what Allied Esports even does anymore. I'm pretty sure I saw that, what's his name? Judd, their former CEO, left. So I don't even know that they're necessarily even operating. I guess they are still operating the esports assets, but from what I understood, they were, they had announced they were trying to sell them, and then they were going to become a SPAC and basically just have a bunch of money and go try to buy something. The only reason I think this could potentially make sense, and I don't know the capital structure currently, but if they were trading at a value below their cash, which they literally might be, it could be very easily financially very accretive to buy back stock. Like let's say they had 100 million cash on the balance sheet and their market cap was like literally 60 million. You could see a scenario where they would want to buy back stock because it's like you're fundamentally you shouldn't be trading below your cash value. But
isn't the implication
it's not something as an investor I would love because it's just like implies you have nothing better to do with.
Yeah,
actually, that's a little bit of a reductive take. It's buying back stock is a capital efficient way to like return capital to shareholders, but it also does generally imply like you don't have a better investment that you could put it into.
To me, it's different than like if you're an airline, right? And your options in terms of growth are limited. And so again, it's about, paying high dividends to shareholders, returning capital to shareholders, et cetera, versus this is a growth area, growth company. Like, and we knew they had announced that they were looking to buy something, right? Is the implication that they couldn't find anything to buy?
I guess so, yeah. Which is pretty bad,
right? That to me, that feels like the worst news. Like the share buyback to me, I'm in the camp of this is the last resort, right? Like you've run out of any good ideas, and I'm not sure the space is there yet, right? Like it feels like there are potential targets out there. There's ways to deploy this intelligently, especially in the downturn here where, there's relatively cheap assets out there to be bought. It feels lazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Stuart says, and surely a bird in the hand given the current economic climate to wait and see what comes up. I mean, yeah, right? Like you're sitting on cash. I don't know what... I haven't, Jeff, to your point, I haven't looked at the stock price. I don't know where it's trading. I don't know relative to the cash on the balance sheet and things like that. But you would think now would be the time where there's a ton of opportunity with them sitting on cash to do something impactful, not a stock buyback. So I was very surprised to see that. And it makes me quite pessimistic about the chances of, like, I've always been pessimistic of things like Super League and, some of the other public esports companies out there. But, I never put Allied in that group. And this had me worried for the first time in terms of what their strategy actually is. Jimmy, I don't know if you have anything to add on this, but... No,
let's keep it moving.
Let's keep it moving. Let's talk about... this one. We're on the bad news sort of section of the show here. And so let's talk about Amazon Luna. And this is unfortunate. It says Amazon Luna hit with major layoffs. Will it follow Stadia's demise? So Amazon has laid off software engineers and software developers responsible for its nascent and possibly unsuccessful cloud game streaming service Luna. It doesn't say, I didn't see in the story how many they were actually firing from the game, like from Luna's arm. There was reports that they were going to fire 10,000 people across a number of divisions. Obviously, any firings are unfortunate. We always, we hope that the people land on their feet, find better opportunities, etc. It's always unfortunate. But Luna seems to be, like, has anyone here heard or seen anything from this product or from the service, I should say, since really it was announced?
A, certainly no, but B, I don't even remember it really being announced. Like Google Stadia at least had a massive reveal. Like there were a lot of people were negative on it, but it was like, yeah, there was a lot of hype around it. Amazon Luna, like I genuinely don't even remember when it was announced. Like I know people had for a while speculated that Amazon was going to do something in cloud gaming, and then they kind of announced this, and now they're seemingly pulling back on it without really much of anything. It's not even like they tried something and failed. It feels like they didn't even, I don't even know if there's a consumer version of Luna. Like, can you even go buy Luna currently? I mean, these are stupid questions I'm asking, but I genuinely don't even know. So yeah, I mean, it's also surprising in the sense of Amazon felt like one of the people that had conviction around this. I mean, they're, if you remember, we did a story when Jeff Bezos stepped down and Andy Jassy was promoted. And to be fair, the whole world was different whatever that was a year ago. But one of the first things he talked about was his conviction and his bullishness around gaming. So it is a bit surprising, I guess, to pull back, given that they're probably one of the few companies that's well positioned for cloud gaming, given they have AWS, they have a ton of money, they're willing, people give them credit to invest, investors like allow them that opportunity. So yeah.
And it shocks me that, and yet we still are seeing people trying the cloud gaming thing, right? Like even with Google's failure, even with Luna's likely failure here, I'm always shocked that we're still probably going to see more attempts at this, and that no one has really learned any lessons from it. It's if Luna actually does fail, like if they kill it, is this, do we start questioning Microsoft's ambition in the space as maybe foolhardy? Do you think anyone starts to question it?
I don't, because I think the difference between what Microsoft is doing, what everyone else is doing, is that Microsoft already has, I feel like, all the infrastructure, the deals, the relationships, the content, the internal studios, and what they're viewing cloud gaming as is like an add-on, right? It's like, hey, this is a new, kind of like I can watch TV, I can stream it on my phone. I would never be like, oh, I need to buy a whole new streaming service because I want to very once in a while watch NFL Red Zone on my phone while I'm out and about. I wouldn't pay for that. Having said that, if I have a TV bundle and they say, oh, well, guess what? You also now can watch it when you're on your phone, I would use that every once in a while. And I think that's how Microsoft is viewing it, is like an add-on delivery mechanism to start with. At some point, it may be something different. But I think when you look at it that way, it still might be very costly. And I don't know if that makes the economics work for Microsoft. But from a consumer perspective, that I think is more appealing to me, where it's like, I have an Xbox, I own these games. Okay, I'm on the go. I want to play it once in a while. Okay, I can get behind that vision versus this is going to be the take over the future of consoles and change the world.
Well, to be fair, Amazon had the more additive approach, right? It's like you get it with your Prime subscription,
right?
Basically,
that was my only recollection of our conversation on Luna. Was I think we were talking about Luna being a Prime edition, and think of all the Prime members, and then maybe they raise Prime $5, a year later, and we thought, okay, well, that works a little bit, and they got Prime Video, and there's a whole TV library there. They're expanding into the relationship with the NFL and other live streaming. So I agree with you, Jeff, from a consumer standpoint, that's probably the way it would be used. But and again, I have one recollection, one conversation in memory from us about this, which was exactly applying it in that same sense. And that was months and months ago. So the fact that wasn't ever realized, or that wasn't the route, I don't know. I don't know if it's just the end of cloud gaming, honestly. Yeah.
I want to ask a bit of a legal question here. One of the things Google did right, I think, with Stadia was when they shut it down. Well, so shutting it down was the first thing they did right with Stadia. But the second thing they did right with Stadia was offering full returns to everyone who had ever bought anything from Stadia, right? For the hardware, for the service, for any games they bought. I don't know if they fulfilled all those refunds, but that's what they said they were going to do, right? Refund everything to everybody. From a legal standpoint, does that create some kind of precedent here where, and it's maybe not a legal standpoint because it's a business precedent, but does it put more pressure on Amazon to do the same if they shut down Luna?
If they've sold a single Luna, I think there's a lot of precedent and a lot of pressure.
People have probably bought games through Luna, right? Which you could buy, say in the same way you could buy them through Stadia.
Like you said, it's more of a PR issue, I think, than anything else. And it's something that they should follow as well. Google did right in that one scenario, as much as we criticize them for everything else about Stadia. So I think Amazon would need to do the same.
But meaning if someone who's wronged by Amazon, right? They spent $1,000 on Luna games, right? And then Amazon shuts it down and they decide they want to go after Amazon to get their money back. Does the fact that Google refunded everybody help their case at all?
Oh, I hear you. I don't know if it's directly relevant. I mean, it's not. First, you look at the law and the direct facts of the circumstance. If you look at public policy or what others are doing in a similar situation, that's really a secondary argument. So it's it's persuasive, but it's not like the authority. It's not binding, right? Is kind of the general rule of thumb here. So it's something that they'll take a look at, but it's not like you would say, well, that has to be the same case here. If there was a lawsuit with Google and Stadia and they were forced to give the refunds, then that would be the precedent you'd be looking for, where Amazon would have to follow, because that would be the controlling law. So public policy versus, ruled and determinative law.
Matt says, it shocks me that Google and Amazon, arguably two of the three most powerful tech brands, can't get cloud gaming right. They would both be better off buying Microsoft or Sony or Nintendo. Well, I don't know if they could buy Microsoft, but
that would be pretty mega for a lot of reasons. Not related to gaming, but it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, or Valve.
Valve. I mean, Valve is the one that someone should buy. I mean, they're probably just not for sale because Gabe Newell is a billionaire and
the smartest guy in gaming, right? Kept it private. Just like doesn't care. They make games when they make games. They make hardware when they want to make hardware.
Yeah. But they would be a very, very obvious one to buy if you wanted to do distribution.
At some point he will want to retire, right? Like that is I think the point when Valve goes up for sale, most likely. When he wants to sort of step back, I would think. All right, guys, let's do a good news story here, because I think this is interesting. It's something I've actually thought about, and I've actually thought about this. Hold on. Chris says, next time you guys are in town, we're going to hit the strip with a camera and a mic and ask people if they can even define cloud gaming. That actually sounds like great content, Chris. We will definitely do that. And no one will be able to define it. So even more funny is get people to define blockchain gaming. I think would be even just as entertaining. All right, let's talk about Texas A&M. Texas A&M in the news saying they're looking to fill a former Macy's store with an esports facility. So basically, they're negotiating a lease with the city of College Station for the Texas A&M esports facility. It's in a mall. It's a huge Macy's, former Macy's. Not much more to the story than that, other than really what I wanted to talk about, guys, is why are we not seeing more dead retail in the US being transformed into gaming related centers? Right? You go, there was a Macy's that was near me in Florida, and every time I pass by this shut down Macy's, I'm like, this is the perfect place to put a gaming center of some kind, because it draws foot traffic, right? Like, for a lot of reasons, it makes sense. Do you guys agree that this is genius? Do you think? Do you not agree? I'm curious what you make.
This is a different prompt to the story than I thought we were getting. I thought you were going to say, guys, I've been saying for years that we need to be using these malls and these areas of high foot traffic for gaming. And now it's coming true. I mean, this is the realization of something you've been saying for like 3 years now. So I'm giving you credit on two stories this show, Paul, but this is another, the prophet called
I'm going to remember this moment.
You did call this years ago, and the fact that A&M is repurposing a Macy's. To me, the cool part about the story is that Macy's are typically incredibly large, right? There's a lot of square footage there that they're going to be repurposing. So this is not a small, let's put a mini land center in a GameStop, which is like 1/50th the size of the Macy's. So this is no small feat. And honestly, if it goes well, how many other schools or businesses are going to now be looking to this same idea of throwing these in malls, repurposing dead retail space? So, you've been calling it. I think we've most largely agreed. I didn't think I was going to see it on this scale, and to me, that's what's the most surprising of the story.
I guess the question I have is like, is this new? We've been in some in the weeds, but like, it doesn't feel like this is a new strategy or even particularly like innovative way to do it. I mean, like Allied Esports had deals with malls 4 years ago. Now, granted, the pandemic happened, and like I think that hurt their ability to do it. At EEG, when I was there with Helix, like we had deals with football stadiums, we had deals with various other businesses to put in land. So it doesn't feel like a new strategy. I mean, Vindex has been they've opened a bunch of them, Nerd Street. I guess the question I have is like, why do you think those haven't taken off? Or is it just too soon? Like, are you bullish that we can see a Dave and Buster's of esports? Because like in my view, if this is going to succeed, that's what it needs to scale up to. Like someone has 200 locations and is like, you know, growing rapidly, not like, hey, one-off college is doing this.
I think the reason I like this so much, it's more a statement, not so much on the scale of the center. It's a statement on the cost effectiveness of the center, right? Like I think if you just look at colleges, what almost every other college has done in the US has built, like they build some facility, right? Those are the ones that get all the press. They build some kind of esports facility, some kind of arena. And I think this is genius to repurpose something I'm sure that's costing them way, 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 way less than building something, you know, purpose built for esports and moving into an existing space, most likely in an area where you're already getting traffic, right? Like a mall in general is still going to attract some traffic, way less than maybe 10 or 20 years ago. But I think it's clever to be in malls, and I think it's clever to take over, sort of to be the vulture of you know, retail, dead retail. I think that to me is the clever nuance here. It's not that no one else is doing centers or no one else is doing big centers, but you know, I can guarantee you just some of the centers I've seen, not just in North America, but here and in Saudi Arabia. I think what people miss is cost effectiveness with these places is key. This is not about building the flashiest, the most decked out and the most expensive real estate. You know what I mean? Like I think that is a bit short-sighted in terms of a strategy. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Jimmy, I don't know if you had anything to add. I think we lost you there for a second.
Yeah, Chrome crashed on me, guys. Sorry about that, but I'm back.
All right, before we move forward, guys, and we have just a couple more stories here, but I just wanted to say this live stream is very generously sponsored by YouGov. YouGov produces the absolute best data on gamers, games, esports fans all around the world. If you're looking to access this very valuable, this extremely lucrative gaming audience, you need to be talking to YouGov. They produce something they call living data. It's constantly updated. It's extremely actionable. I'm going to put a link. You can see it on the screen, but I'm also going to put a link in the chat, yougov.com/BOE, or I'll have Jimmy do it here. yougov.com/BOE. Everywhere we can post it, guys. So go check it out. There's some free reports there, free data there. There's links to some of the YouGov Insight segments that we've done with YouGov on the show. I highly recommend it. These guys are the best in the business. If you need to be in touch with YouGov, you can go to yougov.com/BOE, or you can reach out to any of us. We can put you in touch with someone. So yougov.com/BOE. We thank them for their support. All right, guys. Just a couple short stories here before we end off. This one I also thought was an interesting story for me personally, because I'm a big Shroud fan. And the headline here is award-winning PC builder Maingear and gaming icon Shroud join forces to shake up gaming hardware industry. So this is Maingear that will be launching essentially a new series of PCs, so gaming desktops, the MG1 Shroud Edition gaming desktops, obviously with Shroud pushing it, being the face of it, etc., but with Maingear quality and you know, all of their everything that makes their gaming PC special, but in a very cool design that is, you know, Shroud inspired. Now, I thought this was interesting, guys, because as you I'm sure know, OTK also recently announced their own line of gaming PCs. Now, I think they had acquired a team that was building PCs previously, and they renamed it to Starforge with a highly inappropriate logo. But Starforge PCs, they launched it, and they used their influencers like Asmongold to push these PCs. Now we see Maingear doing a PC with Shroud. Is this just the next evolution of influencer activations? Like, you know, you start with simple things like mice and keyboards and headsets, and now we have $3,000 gaming desktops being pushed by gaming influencers, or like, tell me where you think this business is going, and do you like this activation? Jimmy, maybe your thoughts, or Jeff?
I mean, it's pretty simple, right? You got a gamer that not only can authentically speak to the products that they like, but have some authority for once in a product that they, maybe built themselves at one point or spent a lot of hours in upkeep and replacing parts. And now they're saying, hey, here's the one that I ended up making because, I was custom this entire time, or, right? So, we talk so much about authenticity in this space with partnerships, sponsorships, what have you, with brands that maybe aren't gaming peripherals but are chips and hats and other things. But it makes a lot of sense that you have gaming teams like OTK, or in this case Shroud, that are basically saying, hey, here is the device that meets my needs in my profession, and if you're a fan of me or have similar interests, there you go. I think it's funny, we had God, I can't remember the episode. I think it was a Gen G episode. I know we've had those guys on a lot, and we love working with them. But it was a conversation about how difficult it was as an org to take certain sponsorships with people like Razer and Corsair, et cetera, because depending on the games that they're playing, their creators and their esports athletes wanted to use different mice, different keyboards that they felt gave them an advantage in that game, if it was an FPS or a MOBA or what have you, or just because it was their personal preference, right? So again, when you think of this industry being built on PC gaming and the nuanced differences between all of these different manufacturers, if you're someone that has Shroud's following and influence, it just makes too much sense, I think, or OTK as well, makes too much sense to create your own custom brand.
Which business model do you guys think is the winning one here? Like, because it's two really different approaches. Shroud is, I'm getting paid, I'm sure, to just put his name on PCs that maingear is basically already building, and they may, they'll make a custom side panel or something like that, right, with his logo or something. But for the most part, it's a PC that they were already making and already selling. With OTK, they did sort of acquire an existing PC builder, but there it's owned, right, under their umbrella. It's not a partnership with a third party manufacturer where they're just sticking the OTK logo on it. They launched a new brand. They're paying salaries of people to build these PCs and make, right, like it's an owned and operated property versus just a licensing deal, which is what this maingear one feels like. I mean, Jeff, I don't know if you have thoughts on
it
preference.
Totally depends on what your goals are and who you are as an org. For Shroud, being him just himself and not a business, I don't think he wants to, even though he kind of is a business in and of himself, but like, you're not going to want to scale up, hire people, like create a whole division that manufactures something. Like, that is a lot of overhead to carry if this doesn't work. Whereas obviously with the licensing deal, your upside is clearly less or is clearly capped or more limited, but your downside is as well. So, I mean, if I'm Shroud, I would 100% do what he did. If I'm OTK, I'd probably consider doing what they did, because they're more of a company. They're looking to kind of build an enterprise value. And I think owning the means of production there and being vertically integrated is something you could sell as like an equity story versus just renting out your name. So I think they both made the right decision, actually.
I really think the Shroud deal is probably the better one in either case, in my opinion. And it's just because I think we're talking about totally commoditized hardware, right? Where the complexity around customer support and returns and warranty, and like there's so much hassle around this, that if it's not your core business and not all you're doing all day long, becomes a distraction to, OTK is a media business before anything else. And so like I think I much prefer the Shroud deal, because it's just you're collecting checks every month, and you don't need to do a whole lot other than use the PC and talk about the PC.
I guess, what about the flip side, where it gives you less chance to be successful, right? Like, you don't have control.
I don't know if it does, right? Like I think these businesses are not easy to do. The margins are very small, right? Because you're talking about totally commoditized hardware. And the complexity around customer support and returns and all that eats into those very slim margins even further. And so I don't know if OTK ever makes money with a Starforge. Like I suspect they probably never will. It's just a really difficult business to be in. And yeah, having the influencers to peddle the desktops helps, right? Because your marketing cost is zero. But that's not the only cost to build those businesses.
Right. Agreed.
In Shroud's case, all the marketing costs are going in his pocket. And he doesn't have any downside, right? Like zero. So
definitely better, I think, than the what Dr. Disrespect Gaming kind of angle. Honestly, I like the hardware play a lot more than full-on game development.
Well, really, because I think game development has a way higher potential ceiling. Way higher.
Definitely a higher ceiling for sure, but also a lot greater risk, a lot harder to get right.
Look, if I was a betting man, I think the Docs is putting that's the better place to be. And this is why you have like 100 Thieves saying they're making a game. And I think even OTK has said they were going to make a game. Right? Like there's like making games, I think, is a lot easier than trying to build a hardware company. And the amount of investment is lower in general. Depends on the game, obviously, right? Like if you're making a mobile game versus some AAA, open world, whatever. Christian says, I'm just worried that when these sponsorships become too much in quantity, where the quality starts to take a dip. I mean, hopefully it doesn't affect you. You would hope that those two things aren't related. Chris says, would make for an interesting interview question with Wallace Santos. Dude's been in the space for a minute. Chris, you should tell him to come on the podcast because that would be an interesting conversation. Wallace is the CEO of maingear, for those who are listening. And they have been around a while. These niche desktop, like gaming desktop manufacturers these are tough businesses. Matt says Shroud won easily. Matt, I agree. All right, guys. One last story before we wrap up here. And this is Guild Esports in the news. Guild Esports. The headline here is CEO of David Beckham's esports team steps down. So Guild Esports promotes chief marketing officer to top job as co-founder Cal Horde, I'm not sure how to spell that last name, Cal Horde, set to step away from the business. So CEO and co-founder of Guild Esports is stepping away and being replaced by their CMO, who's taking on the CEO role. So, guys, I'm curious why you think this is happening now, right? Guild has had not great results, right? There's been some mistakes made along the way. Matt says, has Guild ever had a positive
that's a great
outcome?
comment. I mean, we did speak positively about them the last time when I think they renegotiated the Beckham deal down, or made it more of a rev share. So kudos on them for that. But
what do you guys think happened here behind the scenes?
it's always so hard to speculate, right? When an executive leaves, you don't know whether he's, especially a CEO and a founder, maybe he was pushed out, maybe he has another opportunity, maybe he's just lost the passion. So it's hard to speculate without being super close to the business. But to Matt's point, we really have not seen much positive news, from them. Basically, the only stories I can remember us ever doing on them was initially when they first did the Beckham deal, everyone was like scratching their head because it was this massive contract and it seemed to just basically, they made it seem like he was an investor and then effectively he was being paid to just be part of it, which, kind of wasn't great. Then I think there was some story where they had a crypto sponsor and then immediately lost it or something like that. Maybe it was a betting
forgot
sponsor.
about that one. Yeah.
So that they were early to that party, I guess, of crypto taking horrible crypto sponsors. So kudos on them for being a real trailblazer there. But I'm kidding. Yeah. So where they go from here, it's unclear. I'm not sure how much success they've had. Even in their games. I mean, would love to see them start winning and have some positive buzz.
Do you guys read into the fact that it's the CMO who's taking over? Like that maybe marketing is the like Jimmy. I don't know if you had.
No, that's what I was looking at too. That's an interesting observation. I thought, well, depending on the stage of the company, right? The CEO has different things. Early stage CEOs, you could speak better than I can, Paul, but you're often fundraising, right? Or trying to, gather investors. I don't know if this is a positive change for them where, again, maybe they feel comfortable with the Beckham structure, comfortable with their partnerships, and now they need to just get the name out there, pound it in and grow the brand more. So maybe they just thought their current CEO wasn't doing that. I don't want to speak badly on him, but yeah, a lot of the stories that, like Jeff mentioned, weren't great that we were hearing. The specific person that they're choosing to replace the CEO was interesting because he's a marketing background. So that's what I thought, Paul, was the marketing angle.
Yeah. Chris says, does Paul wear Oakley sunglasses in the desert? I gotta think he does. Chris, if you're expecting me to say no, I wear Google prototype scopes with built-in LCD, LED, 1080p, 3D Sony technology built into every lens. That's what I wear in the desert. I don't know if that you were teeing up the doc joke, but there you go. No, I guess the last comment on the guild thing is, do you see this as positive or negative, right? Is it fresh blood, fresh thinking, fresh leadership? Or is this like, oh my God, the ship's sinking here, and this is, this is not a good sign when, a founder and a CEO is leaving?
I think it's natural to startups that eventually they need to continue to grow. They need to change the way they're doing things from the top down. And you can't expect, even the greatest companies, you can't expect that CEO to be in that position forever. So I'm taking it positively, and I'm hoping that we start getting a lot more positive headlines out of that org in the future, because, we're rooting for video games and esports to succeed, right? And so we would much rather be sharing those positive stories.
Guys, that on the hour exactly wraps up this week's episode. I just want to thank everyone who came, contributed, asked questions. We appreciate you. Don't forget, even though it's Thanksgiving this week, there's a podcast episode. There's all kinds of content we put out. So make sure you subscribe to Business of Esports everywhere, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram, you name it, on every platform. Tune into Scott Cole's podcast episode this week. It's going to be a good one. I promise. It's different from the usual. And we thank you guys all for coming. Don't forget, we do this every Wednesday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. Bring your friends, bring your colleagues. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Jeff. Don't forget the most important thing. The future is fun, guys. We'll see you next week.